Greetings from Sweden and welcome to Everyday Mystic, an aid to your spiritual growth. My name is David, and today I wish to offer a different perspective. It's of course not just my own perspective, but I think that it is a perspective that is severely lacking in the world today. Because what do you see when you look out into the world? I see a lot of division, a lot of hatred, a lot of tyranny, a lot of people that wish to force their will upon other people. And the perspective that I want to talk about is a perspective of love, compassion, forgiveness, understanding, and freedom. And I believe that how we view God in all of this will have a great effect on how we act out in the world. Do we essentially view God as a loving parent or as a punishing tyrant? Because if we view God as a punishing tyrant, we might also wish to exact this punishment upon other people. We might want to protect ourselves and those around us that believe the same things as we from what we perceive as harmful influences from others, from what we believe to be wrongful beliefs, harmful beliefs that will, if they are tainting ourselves and tainting those around us, lead to a punishment from God. And of course, if this is what we believe, this is what we will enact out into the world. But what happens if we take a step back and bring a little more consciousness into this? Human beings are rarely as rational as we think that we are. It's very easy to look at arguments for different positions and believe that these arguments are truly valid, when really it's just a bunch of preconceived notions that make us accept certain arguments and dismiss others. And now I want to talk about the perspective that this video is really about. Again, God as a loving parent or a punishing tyrant. When we were little children, the consequences of our actions usually felt much more severe than they actually were. And this was a mechanism that was there to protect ourselves, so that we did not hurt ourselves. It was not there to exact punishment for the sake of exacting punishment. At least if we had good parents. And I believe that there is a strong analogy between good, faulty parents here on earth and God as the perfect parent of all of us. And this is still true when we become adults for many of us. Many of us really never grow up completely. Most of us, I would say. I know that I have not fully matured in every sense of the word, because I believe that being fully mature as a human being is in essence to be enlightened. In essence to have realized what Jesus had realized inside of ourselves. What Jesus was born into, and the potential that lies dormant in each and every one of us. And until we have reached that state, we are not fully mature. This is at least what I believe. But let's get back now to the analogy of the good parent. Let's now imagine the perfect parent. Because as we mature, as we grow up, instead of just blindly doing what our parents tell us to do, or disobey our parents and face the consequences of it, if we had good parents, we start to more and more adopt the parents' values as our own. At least if we have a good relationship with the parents, and at least if we are developing the way that we should as human beings. Then we start to freely choose what, and to begin with, until we started to mature, was forced upon us. We start to freely choose this. And I believe that this is the right way to look at our relationship with God. In the beginning, and this goes for the infancy of humanity also, by the way. In the beginning we needed to have clear rules and regulations, but as we are maturing, as we start to incorporate more of the example that Jesus set, and the teachings that Jesus taught, when we start to understand what these things really mean, we start to choose this freely. And this is something that I talk a lot about on my channel. I truly believe that we only have the choice of the imprisonment of the ego, which is the will and ways of the world, and all of the beliefs and ideas and values that are instilled on us by our culture, both unconsciously and consciously, or the will of God, the Creator, which is the perfect will. And here comes the analogy of the perfect parent. If we know that our parent's will is perfect, then this can only be the real free choice that we make. Everything else is just conditioned by our culture about cause and effect, by our instincts and our chaotic emotions and our confused thoughts and our rationalizations for everything that we do, that really, when we look at it from a clearer perspective, understand is not really chosen freely, but just this deterministic cause and effect mindset. I hope this makes some sort of sense. At least it does to me, but I don't know actually if I'm so good at explaining this. But hopefully you understand what I mean. If there is a perfect will, how can there be any other freedom of choice than to follow this perfect will? And now I want to talk a little bit about the Old Testament, because I know that it is quite a difficult book, at least if you look at it in a literal sense. And I don't think that this is the right way of looking at it. In fact, the more you scrape the surface of the Bible, the more you start to look past the literal interpretations of it, the more it starts to make sense, because a literal interpretation of the Bible, at least to me, makes no sense. But if you look at the Old Testament in this way instead, and now I want you to put on different glasses, because we cannot analyze this from the perspective of the modern person. If we look at it instead of a society where many people did not have a concept of really right and wrong at all. We had society where people sacrificed their children to God. We had these little tribes that were at constant war with each other. It was perfectly acceptable to attack another tribe and just kill them, kill both the men, women and children, and do all of these other terrible things that probably is not very good to mention on YouTube. It was perfectly acceptable to just do this to survive, do this to grab hold of every little pleasure that we could grab hold of. This has been the reality for most of humanity's history. And we can see traces of this in societies today. We can see traces of this within ourselves. But we can also see the impulse to transcend this, the impulse to seek something higher. And here I believe we have the example and the teachings of Jesus. This is not to say that there are not other spiritual teachers, that there are no other spiritual masters, both contemporary and in the past. I truly believe that we have a lot to learn from teachers like Buddha, from the more or less mythical figures of Hinduism, whether they actually existed or not. I believe that there are lots of great teachings here. But if we want to look at a perfect example to follow, I truly believe that there is no better way to look than to look to Jesus. All other things that consider that might be true for Jesus, I believe that one very important aspect when he said, I am the way, the truth and the life, and no one gets to the Father except through me, I believe is the example that Jesus set. The perfect teachings of Jesus. And maybe, just maybe, what he meant was not believe in me, believe in what I did, or you will suffer for eternity in hell. Maybe this was not what Jesus meant when he said those words. If you think about it, there are a lot of things in both the Old and the New Testament that could have been said in a much more clear language, if the literal interpretation was the point of them. And I will make a whole video about this another time. But now I want to just get back to this. We have our whole history with our ups and downs along the way, but we can see a very clear line throughout the history where we go from a more savage state, a more just survival of the fittest state, a state where we just seek to survive and gratify our senses, to a more and more refined state that is more in line with the will for God and the will that God has for his creation. I don't think that we'll need all of this ideas about hell and eternal punishment to see that this is something that we want to strive for. We want to strive to grow up as a species, to leave behind all these threats of punishment that we needed when we were still in our infancy as a species, and adopt a more adult perspective on who we are and what we are here to do in the world. And I believe that this is the right perspective to take when it comes to our relationship with our Father, with our God. That when we were in our infancy, we needed the threat of punishment to not hurt ourselves, but now that we are growing up, we can adopt these values as our own instead, and believe in them because we know that they are right, and because we know that they lead to the best consequences, both for ourselves as individuals and for the collective that we are part of. And as I said, I truly believe that the perfect ideal for this, everything else considered, with our oneness with God fundamentally and our oneness with each other that is there, But when it comes to how we live and act in this world right now, I don't believe that there is any better example than Jesus Christ, what he showed us through the way he lived and through what he taught. And that's it for today. If you like this video, please leave a like, leave a comment and share the video on social media and other places. All of it helps the video to get noticed on YouTube and therefore the channel to grow. And if you haven't done it already, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so YouTube always notifies you of new videos. And check out the description and comment section for other things that me and my wife are doing. Especially check out my Etsy store where I have my own t-shirt designs, my own fiction and vintage porcelain cats. Yeah, I know it's a bit random, but the reason is that I didn't have the time to keep several Etsy stores going at once, so that's why. It's a great way to support the channel. And other than that, just sincerely thank you for your time.